I kind of like that. It adds je ne sais quoi to the equation of playing chords like that. This is interesting in a different way, but it actually sounds more sour. It was the combination of the modulation and the scale that ended up really inspiring me. Yeah, I like that, see? There it is. Hey there, Roots and YouTubers. Sorry, I really like puns. My topic today is how to use deeper features on our hardware and software to create limitations that feed our creativity. I'm trying the face cam as an alternate view for the first time today. If you can let me know in the comments if you like it or don't like it, I'll be happy to take that feedback, thank you. Also, if you want to know about this corner of my basement where I have the MFB Tanzbar, the Keystep Pro from Arturia, and the Dave Smith Prophet 10 all linked together over the last few months, I have a number of other videos that showcase them. I'll put a link to some of those videos in the comments. Let's get started. I'm pretty much the same as most other synthesists when it comes to manuals. I'm just so enamored with the new and shiny thing that I have. I just want to get my hands on it, plug it in any way I know how, and start messing around. That said, as I start to get a handle on the top-level features of a new piece of equipment, it's time to really get into that manual, as boring as it may be. Oftentimes there are hidden features in the menus, Easter eggs, in both software and hardware tools that really can take things to the next level, and they can also creatively box us in and help us make something quite unique to that feature. Today in particular, I would like to talk about alternate tunings that you can use on most hardware synthesizers available on the market today. Most digital audio workstations do not have alternate tuning options built in. The MIDI protocol is based on the Western equal temperament scale. I have used software instruments that specifically have features for alternate scales and tunings, but you would need to check the feature set of a software instrument you're thinking of purchasing to see if this is an available option. Let's briefly talk about the Western equal temperament scale that we're all quite used to at this point. This actually hasn't been around as long as you think. It was initially documented in the late 1800s and wasn't actually adopted as a Western standard until early 1900s. As Westerners do, we standardized on a scale that we really liked across the board. In the case of the Prophet 10 and other Dave Smith instruments, there is a set of alternate scales within the menus. Let's navigate to them. So the global edit menus are here. We go to the second page, and it's the fourth parameter. You can't read it on the screen right now. It says alternate tuning. And in a typical Western fashion, the standard scale looks to be labeled as normal. So this is the tuning we all know really well. All of the chords sound the way we are used to hearing them. Let's check out some of the other scales in here. Let's go to the first alternate scale. Ooh. This is definitely what Westerners would call microtuning, meaning that the intervals are smaller than our normal semitones. Seems like an octave on the keyboard is closer to a fifth, but not quite a fifth. I wouldn't necessarily find this scale particularly useful for music, but maybe because it's microtuning, I could design a sequence that would be really interesting with notes that are close to a Western scale, but create a different emotional response. Let's check out the next scale available. This one's pretty uncomfortable to listen to. Might be quite useful for sound design, maybe some horror or something else, uncomfortable psychological thriller. Not necessarily going to be particularly useful to me. Let's check out the next scale. This one's kind of interesting because some of the intervals sound reasonably close to the Western tuning, and others are just a little bit wonk. This is something I could probably use. It kind of reminds me of old soul records and things like that, where the instruments aren't all perfectly in tune with each other. Yeah, that could be useful. Let's go back to the standard tuning and play something similar. And back again. I kind of like that. It adds je ne sais quoi to the equation of playing chords like that. The scale I ended up using was scale number 11 for the piece of music that I created. There are different forms of wonk in here, but what I found is if I avoided using certain notes, I could get something really interesting and pleasing. I just had to avoid certain notes on the keyboard, and those are the kind of limitations we want. We want to force ourselves into boxes, because if I could play any note on the keyboard, I would probably play something very similar to other pieces of music that I have written in the past. So I took this as a unique challenge. Let's play the sequence that I came up with. There's another thing to mention here, which is that I also combined this with some pitch modulation over in the modulation section of the Prophet 10, and it's integral to what I ended up with. Let's take away the pitch modulation using the mod wheel. This is interesting in a different way, but it actually sounds more sour than when the pitch is warbling on each note. It was the combination of the modulation and the scale that ended up really inspiring me. Yeah, I like that, see? There it is. I'll show you the B section of the piece of music right now. Again, I could only use certain notes because other notes sounded too far out of tune. The notes I chose were just enough out of tune to feel interesting, and this actually created a completely different piece of music than I would have created without the alternate scale. Thanks as always for tuning in. Get into those manuals for your hardware or software and find the Easter eggs. Mess around with your combinations of effects that are available within an instrument and see if you can come up with something that feels different, unique. I know I did in this case, and I'm going to try to do it more often. That's all I have for this week. Take care, enjoy the spring, and have fun.